my God. Wyatt Prunty is in the audience, who I owe a lot to. It's good to see you. Thank you to Leanne Couch and to Wyatt Prunty, co-editors of the Sewanee Poetry Series, for accepting this as the inaugural volume. An incredible honor. Thank you all for having me here and for this wonderful event. I owe the Sewanee Writers Conference so much, and this place means a lot to me, so reading here means a lot to me. My favorite joke in the poetry world is Dante at open mic night. Hi, I'm Dante. I just have 3 poems. And anyone who's suffered through an open mic understands that joke and laughs about it. And I have to tip my cap to Sewanee Writers Conference staff member Hastings Hensel, my friend, who I think that's who I first heard that joke from. It's a great joke. I'm Dan Albergotti, and I just have 5 poems. And thank you for your attention. I'm going to read 4 from the book and 1 newer poem. I'm going to start with a poem called Exegesis of Jonah. I like to imagine that one night, somewhere between Joppa and Nineveh, sometime between the sailor's pitch and the whale's belch, a couple of young lovers strolled the beach hand in hand beneath the sun's muted light reflected off the surface of the moon. I like to imagine them new to each other, still shy, looking more at the flickering glints on the waves than at each other's dim face at first. Then some force draws their lips together. Just look at them there, in the very spot where spat out Jonah will later land like a hurled javelin, kissing as if they could make the world disappear, kissing until they have to stop to come up for air before returning to their search for something holy there. Am I okay with this? Am I making a popping sound there? I kind of
No.
Too close. Okay, good. We're in Angel Park. Who's to say that these carpenter bees are not angels here? I kind of love them. They nearly got you earlier, but I feel like their presence is a blessing, Jeff. Oh, also I have to thank Jeff Harden, who invited me to participate several years ago in a small group on Facebook Messenger with some fellow poets, and the idea was we all shared a poem with each other each week. No pressure for a workshop or anything like that, but it was accountability that helped me get work done, and several of the poems that I wrote then found their way into this book, including this one. The prairie vole is apparently, according to scientists, one of the most empathetic creatures. They've studied hormone levels in them, and if one is injured, others will come and try to help. But they've measured this hormone that is elevated when one is in pain, but the ones that are helping show similar levels. This makes me love the vole. I don't know if that has anything to do with the poem or not. A vole's in here, metaphorical. The elect. Like the vole, I have wandered afield under the greater sky, not knowing 9/10 of my brethren are already gone. I have found another of my kind, and joined her walk toward the sun in its setting. I have entered the earth. I have nosed the root that feeds the vine. I have seen the remains of others stopping and walking on. One morning I woke, and the other did not. I have felt the warmth that dries the dew. I have been happy. Above me, I have seen a wheeling halo of birds. I'm going to pause from the book and read a new poem. For Nita, who writes about music. Writes about listening to songs. I write about listening to songs. I was going to read the longest poem in the book, which is about listening to a song. And I timed it out. It's a little too long. So this is only the second longest poem I've ever written. I just have 5 poems. Listening to Hounds of Love today. I'm looking into the eye of the squirrel that's fallen from the tree and trying to see if there's still life there or if there's only the reflection of clouds. And I'm happy everyone's listening to Running Up That Hill this summer. And so is the magical Kate Bush She said so. And God, who wouldn't be? That song was 40 years ahead of its time, it seems. So now I can be insufferably smug when I say I loved it in 1985 and love being still alive in 2022 to see the rest of the world just starting to catch up after running uphill for decades. I'm pretty sure the squirrel is already dead. I'm pretty sure the world is already dead, filled as it is with older people who refuse to feel anything, and young people who don't listen to whole albums anymore. Running Up That Hill is great, but I prefer the second song on Kate's Hounds of Love, the title track, as it's called. I love how it begins with that man's panicked voice surrounded by heavy drums. It's in the trees, it's coming. And immediately you're right there, right where the last drone of Running Up That Hill had left you, a place that's wondrous and strange and alive and more than a little terrifying. I almost believe I can see the reflection of my own stunned face in the squirrel's coal black eye, the same face that watched the eye of a sparrow slowly close over minutes as the bird lay on patio brick below the plate glass window it had struck, while my father sat in his recliner, oblivious, being one of those older people who feel nothing. My own face, but younger. So not really me. The same face, the same skull, not the same mind. The same life moving as ever toward its end. The careful attention I paid to that bird's death annoyed the hell out of that man who worked hard to feel nothing. When my father would put the family cat out for the night, he'd pick her up in one hand, open the door, and then hurl her into the dark. I always wondered why he felt the need to show his own son how much he didn't care. When I was a child, I would look at animals in a way that made me seem to float away from others, beyond their voices, wholly lost. I would have to be startled or shaken back into this world. I'd talk to dogs and scold them when they got up, shook, and walked away. I'd stare for what seemed like hours at frogs and crickets in roadside ditches. I stopped cold when, as I walked to kindergarten, the flattened carcass of a cat swam into the circle of my vision, the world given to my bent head. Since, I've always wondered how my mother could not have seen that body before I did, my small hand in hers. When I was a child are the first 5 words out of Kate's mouth on Hounds of Love. And that song that song lives in the innocent fear of a world too large for everything small. And when she sings in the second verse about the dog-caught fox that lets her take him in her hands, and how his little heart, it beats so fast, my own heart trembles every time. Does yours? Do you hear what I hear there, reader? Do you know Kate knows what we know? Are you happy? This squirrel's eye is so black, obsidian, jet. I can hardly believe it could ever see anything but void. But nothing's ever truly empty, is it? There's always something there in the dark. Sometimes when I'm alone, I'll suddenly feel as if something's coming through the trees, or through the clouds, or through the rain, or through the past, or through the future. And I'll feel that tingle run up my spine, the same one I feel whenever I imagine, without trying to, how losing control of a car on a busy highway might feel. The imagination is dangerous. It can be like a dog that's been trained so well, it starts to teach itself new tricks. It stops waiting for commands, brings you things unasked for. Imagine that dog of the imagination turning out to be one of those breeds that, as some people say, will turn on you. One that's hardwired to bite the hand it feeds, that will lift its sweet, once puppy face to up to you and give a frothing, curled lip snarl. Bad imagination, learning its own tricks. Like when it gives you the image of your dog, your real one, on the table at the vet's office, gazing into your face as you meet her forehead with yours the moment the needle slides into her vein, some undetermined time in the near or far future. Do you ever find yourself sobbing in the shower over something that hasn't happened? and might not for a very long time, if ever. Are you happy? Keats said he never counted upon any happiness, but only lived in the moment of its arrival. In that letter, he said a sunset could make him happy, or the sight of a sparrow before his window picking about the gravel. That was November 1817. 4 years later, he was dead. And I'm happy that everyone is listening to Running Up That Hill, but I wish they'd listen to all of Hounds of Love. Because context matters in art, don't you think? You read that bit about Keats using the imagination to cast himself into the sparrow's existence, to pick about the gravel himself in a different way, if you know about the coughed up blood in Rome. You stand before the throne of the third heaven in a different way, when you learn that Hampton earned his Bronze Star and then spent all his days of those 14 years pushing mops and brooms. You listen to Atmosphere in a different way, knowing Ian will soon walk away into eternal silence. Maybe you read this poem in a different way, if you've read Affirmation of Faith in the boatloads. And you craft the art of your life in a different way when you feel something coming through the trees. Have you seen that home video the family made of releasing the orphaned bunny they'd nursed to health? They had wanted to capture its leap into a free and happy life. And there is a leap. It bounds out of its crate in the camera's shaky frame with something you think must be a pure joy for about 20 feet before ascending into heaven in the talons of a hawk. Oh, here I go. Yet again, following that old dog into memory and dread and pulling you with me, reader. Forgive me. But listen to this too. I once saved some baby squirrels when their nest fell to the ground outside my window, knocked from the trees high-limbed by another hawk. They were tiny, stunned, their eyes still closed, and I picked them up one by one and delivered them into a low crook of the same tree. And then my wife and I watched as the mother squirrel recovered each, carrying it in her mouth to somewhere else, beyond, we could hope, the eye of a hawk. And I was happy, because I saved them. I saved them. I saved them. For this, I now think, looking into a jet black eye, Lazarus died a second time, you know. Still, we have now. Maybe we can be happy now. A good start might be listening to a whole album. Because that can give you entirely, if momentarily, a new life in a way that a single song never really can. Because if you've never heard how summer's cauldron bleeds into grass, then you've never heard grass. And if you've never heard the beat of Train in Vain sneak up from that brief moment of silence, just after Four Horsemen has blended into I'm Not Down, and I'm Not Down has blended into Revolution Rock, presumably closing out the greatest album ever made, then you've certainly never heard Train in Vain. And if you've never heard Hollywood arise from the embers of Ghosteen's first 10 tracks, then you've never heard Hollywood, nor felt its ephemeral gargantuan weight on your chest. And if you've never heard the faint rustle of brittle leaves moved by a cold autumnal wind after you've come home from having the dog put down, then you've never heard the rasp and wheeze of your own final breath. And if you've never heard the rasp and wheeze of your own final breath, you're going to find it hard to begin the difficult business of living this life well. So young people, listen to me. Listen to an album. Now, turn your phones off and throw them in the lake. Drop the vinyl on the turntable, drop the needle in the outer groove, and close your eyes for an hour. And older people, try to remember when you felt something. Maybe when you listened to your own favorite album, the one you've forgotten about, and how the world then seemed right for an hour, and how that near silence felt holy as the needle tracked quickly across the innermost groove before the tone arm lifted like a bird and came to rest with a click. Maybe listen to that album today. It's not too late to be happy, to remake a soul. I'd join you if I could. But right now, I have to cover the reflection of my eyes with this soft, broken soil, then use the shovel's face to tamp it down. Thank you for your indulgence. I'm not Dante. I usually write very short poems, but lately I've been doing these really weird long things. I have 2 more poems, both from the book. Stony Sleep. I chose not to have the little after Yeats bit here. I hope anyone who's reading a poem in the year 2025 knows what Yeats poem I'm referring to. I don't know. I think you'll know. Stony Sleep. In the end, we made a pillow for our heads from broken brick and twisted rebar. We huddled together in the waning sunlight and pulled a blanket of ash up to our chins. We nestled close, squeezed out all air between us, and even then, wound like a ball of snakes, we felt our warmth begin to drain. In the shadows of reeling, indignant desert drones, we felt the molten rock embrace our feet. Cradled now, we sleep the sleep of stones. Maybe in 20 centuries you'll find us here, another fetal xenolith waiting to be reborn. Xenolith is a rock encased in another rock. I learned that term. Ever since I learned that word, I wanted to get it into a poem. That was my opportunity. This is the last poem I'll read. And this is a spoiler alert. This reveals kind of a secret about the book's title. I made reference to Ian and Atmosphere earlier. Joy Division is my favorite band of all time, and I'll just tell you one thing really quickly. The lead singer of Joy Division was a man named Ian Curtis, a young man. He was an epileptic, and that he began suffering seizures during performances. There was a lot of pressure on his life. He was estranged from his wife. They had a young child, but they also had a dog. He had a border collie that he loved, and he carried a picture of this border collie with him at all times. His wife, feeling the pressures of his absence with the band and their separation and the child, decided without consulting him to give the dog away to another family. And a couple months later, Ian Curtis hanged himself at the age of 23 the night before the band was to leave for their first American tour. On that happy note, closing our reading, on listening to Atmosphere one more time. After all the years of my obsession with every note and every word, with the bass and synth and drums and sweeping chimes, with the video in grainy black and white filled with stills amid a funereal procession, today, all I can think of is Candy, and how the people who took her in shortly before Ian died must have, surely must have, had to have, could not have shown her that love that makes it worth being torn apart.